Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. Right. So, Brother had actually did a lesson on this particular movie that's coming out in 2024 in January. Right. It's heavy because this movie is showing the Israelites, the so called blacks, right, the kingdom of Judah, Benjamin, Judah, and Levi as so called black men, like how it should be. And it's showing the so called Romans as so called white men, right? These will be the Edomites in this time. Right, so I'm gonna play some of this trailer, and they showing the Messiah as the world ignorantly know as Jesus, as a so-called black man. I'm gonna show you that. Check this out. Not a man without faults. I play. I'm Clarence. I'm not a man without faults. Now you see that to the left. This would be accurate. This is how the kingdom of Judah, you know what I'm saying, the southern kingdom looked physically, being so-called black men. You don't see this in these movies. You see them being so-called white men. Just look at the movie Passion of the Christ, right? Get more into this. Played the cards I was dealt.
Lance, in spite of your selfish ways, there is a beautiful soul in there somewhere. Clarence, it's him. Jesus of Nazareth. You can't even buy power like that. I want to be like that in 10 years.
Now you see that, you can see a glimpse of his face. You can see his hand to the left, brown flesh, right? You can see his arm by his garment, right? Like he got an afro or something like that. With a beard, it's hard to see his face, right? Because that's how they got it. Give me 1 second. This phone button.
Yes.
Salakia.
Can't even buy power like that. I want to be like that in 10 years.
All right, you can see his arm. And like you can see an image of his face. You can vaguely see it, right? But I guess they did this to keep you in suspense, right? But that is a so-called black man, and this is accurate, right? So let's get into this lesson in 1 second. So I'm gonna get into as much of this article as I can, but that's heavy right there. You know what I'm saying? All right. So I'm gonna get straight into it because I got a lot to get to. It says at the very top, now that we have a bit of background knowledge, we can fast forward to the fall of Rome, in which an Israelite slave gladiator by the name of Septimius Severus rose up and took over. One might be confused by history books that call this man a Greek, but one must understand firstly, the Greeks had passed many decrees against the Jews, right? One being that it was unlawful for one to call themselves a Jew. It says if one could not call himself a Jew, then he was forced to call himself a Greek, right? So this is a very, very important understanding, so you can understand those Greeks in most cases was talking about the Israelites, right? That's what you Christians don't understand. Let me get back into this. This is actually a very overlooked detail, which is a major detail, which causes confusion when religious people read the New Testament. It says a lot of times when Greeks are mentioned, it's talking about Hellenized Israelites. And that's why they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible so they can cause confusion, right? It says after this, the Byzantine Empire rose, very religious and rich and with icons. Some opposed the use of images, interpreting one of the 10 commandments to mean no images. So you might think if they opposed it, then obviously they would destroy those images, right? What they do not tell you, though, is that there was a third iconoclastic period that was called the Renaissance. Not all the images were destroyed. It says in a lot of surviving ones were whitewashed. All right. A lot of surviving ones were whitewashed, right? In the following, you will witness a slew of so-called black biblical images found in Russia. And in the next paragraph, I will discuss Renaissance, which was a desperate attempt to whitewash the prior rulers and promoting a so-called white supremacy. Right here, these from Russia, and a lot of these images are in Russia. This book, a series of books called the Russian Icons. With these books, can range up into the thousands. Let me show you this real quick. This phone is really bugging out. They don't want this information to come out. 1 second. Let me go here. I'm gonna jump back right real quick. Right here. So this one of these books. It says $2,286. All right. Right here. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in. You see those brown images, that brown flesh. This would be the true Israelites, how they look. You see that? And what these devils did in some cases, in a lot of cases actually, they came in and whitewashed these images with chemical solutions, right? That's how you get the term whitewash, all right? You see Messiah sitting in the middle with an afro with brown flesh. You're not going to never see this, man. And these are real images, all right, that was in Russia. And check this out right here. This heavy. This you devils going into captivity because we had you under subjugation for 1,000 years, right? This is a history that you don't know about. And you devils going back into captivity, right? Look at that. So-called black man, brown flesh, right? So you will never see these images in no mainstream school, no mainstream media source, nothing like that. No mainstream books, all right? This been hidden from you. Look at that. And some of these images, they have lightened up the flesh using that solution, right? It's supposed to be the so-called Black Madonna, all right? Which we don't get into all that stuff, but St. Nicholas. So you had some called the Holy Roman Empire, and it was ruled by Jakes, so-called black men Israelites, right? Brown flesh, right? And some of these images have been whitewashed, right? They've been lightened up using that technique. Look at this. You'll never see these. These the angels. You know what I'm saying? They got these portraying as the angels as being so-called black. All right? Look at that. You see what it is. It goes on and on. Like I say, to get your hand on this book, it's about, $2,000 in the thousands. This Moses, right before they whitewashed him, right? Moses again has been a so-called black man. And these are real images. They're supposed to be Salakia. Looking for one in particular. All right. 14th and 16th century. While the world was getting whitewashed. All right. These images. Look at that. Yeah, okay, let me get back into this. It says the Renaissance, right? That's these so-called white people coming back into power around the late 13th or early 14th century. It says Renaissance, which means rebirth. So what did the so-called white man rebirth? His philosophies, his dealings, his witchcraft, his lies, right? His enchantments, his idolatry, right? It says, does anyone ask themselves what they were being reborn from? Yes, they tell you that it was an illumination at that time, at time of philosophical revolution, artistic inspiration. But is it the rebirth they were talking about? No, it was the rebirth of Caucasians, you Edomites, finally coming out of slavery once more and being in power. This is why the Power Era was called the Dark Ages, and it was because dark races were ruling you Israelites. That's the history that you don't know. You thought you was always slaves. That's not true. You were just seeing, you have just seen the archaeological evidence of it. If you wish to believe otherwise, then so be it. But do your research. But that's something Jake don't do. All right? The Borgias, let's get into this. It says the root of this image lies in one man, the infamous and at the same time famous Slovakia. Let's keep bugging out. At the same time famous at the very top, Cesare Borgia, Caesar Borgia. His life was from Caesarea, 1475 from March 12th, 1501. It says when you read about his life, and please do your own research, do not take my word for it. He is filled with all sort of conspiracies and apparent criminal practices that have never been declared. At the same time, though he belonged to a powerful family, the Borgias, they actually got a series on one of these shows or whatever on one of these channels about the Borgia family. It says his father, Pope Alexander VI, I believe, was willing to spend riches upon riches to make his son a true living prince. It has been recorded that Cesare traveled. He had 50 mules, 16 stallions, and 48 attendant men on horseback with him. Talk about daddy's little boy, huh? Anywho, at one point there was a competition between Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. So these painters, that's how they got the movie, the characters from these painters, the Ninja Turtles, or say Leonardo da Vinci, to see who could impress the king with their painting of his son the best. The image was supposed to recreate his son and to deceive the world. Coincidentally, Caesar already had connections with Leonardo da Vinci and apparently was his lover. You hear this? It says Leonardo da Vinci won the competition. Another point I want to bring out: has anyone ever asked themselves how anyone could paint a painting of a man who lived 1400 years ago before his time? It says Leonardo might have been a bit smart, but he wasn't a time traveler. So what about this shroud? The shroud, it has Hamashiach or Christ image on it. You can't deny that. Well, actually, that shroud that the Vatican is holding was used as a wrap of Caesar body when he died. Either that or they painted it or some other foolishness. So if that's Cesare Borgia image, then what does Hamashiach or Christ of the Bible look like? The Israelite one, the Jew from the tribe of Judah, which means you are from the tribe of Judah, right? Well, if you read the article I posted in the first paragraph, you would know that the true Israelites of the Bible today are so-called Negroes and people of indigenous descent of the Americas. There'll be the 10 tribes that was already over here, which include Hispanic, so-called, right? It says again, you might think this is one heck of guy that about if you didn't read. All right, so this Cesare Borgia, Caesar Borgia, right here, you can tell it's the same image that our people have been crying out to, right? But I'm a more than likely have to do a second part to this. But hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Hala Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, Rakak Wadash. Shalom.